Greetings, Internet faithful. I am some guy named Rob from On Your Marks Wrestling, and this is Rob Recaps NXT for May the 2nd, 2018. We start with a cold open backstage with the Undisputed Era, who are cutting a promo on Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch, of course, referring to what happened last week on NXT. Bobby Fish offers to tell his rehab group that there may be some new patients coming their way. And all the other guys have to do is say the word, which I thought was kind of interesting that they worked the rehab of Bobby Fish into the whole thing. Roderick Strong then basically runs down Pete Dunne, saying that what he did at TakeOver will be nothing compared to what he does to him later on tonight, basically hyping up the match for later on in the show. In the ring, we open up with Kairi Sane taking on a Shazza McKenzie, someone that I don't recognize at all. I don't know if she's new. I don't know if she was brought in as something of an enhancement talent. I don't know. Again, I'm not as familiar with the NXT product as some others. So if others can correct me, please do leave some notes down in the video comments. This match basically is all Kairi. She hits an Alabama Slam, which they dub the Tokyo Slam, follows it up with an insane elbow. Not much to speak of in terms of the in-ring action. Now, after the match, we get Lacey Evans, who comes down to the ring. She's saying that she would like to apologize, saying that Kairi does in fact belong in NXT, that she was wrong, that the Pirate Princess did not belong in NXT, and offers to shake her hand as a sign of respect. The crowd, as well as Kairi Sane, are very dubious of this sudden change of heart, as well they should be, because Lacey Evans basically clocks her in the head with the microphone, and then just sort of saunters off with a smug little smile on her face. Overall, the segment I thought was pretty good. The one thing that I really disliked was the sort of cutesy pose that was put on by Shazza McKenzie when she was on the ramp, and as soon as she got into the ring, sort of that really cheesy photographer sort of pose. It just looked really odd, and sort of the sending of the heart over to Kairi Sane. I thought that was, I mean, I get that the gimmick is designed to be cheesy, but that was a little much. We then get a recap of the Ciampa Gargano drama from last week. This segues to a Kathy Kelly interview with Candice LeRae. Candice is doing a pretty good job of showing that she is distraught and distracted over her match later on. She tries to talk about how things have been difficult because of the whole situation with Ciampa, and, she gets a little bit more emotional, and then she kind of leaves. The segment itself, not too bad, fairly well acted. Certainly a cut above what I'm used to seeing definitely in more of the indie wrestling. In the WWE, in the main roster, I have seen some really good acting on occasion. This was not really up to that standard, but definitely a step above most indie wrestling. Up next, we get TM61 versus the Street Profits, and I have never seen or heard of either of these tag teams, really. If I've seen them on previous episodes of NXT, I've completely forgotten about them, so I'm going to apologize now for not having a whole lot of insight into the match. The match itself was relatively serviceable, if not to get altogether the most interesting match of the night. TM61 apparently are the heels of the group, as they use sort of a feet up on the ropes to get the pin and sort of sneak a victory from the Street Profits, rather. Overall, I would say this was probably the match of the night that had me engaged the least. I just, even though the announcer team was trying to put over both teams and what they've done and what they've accomplished, I just couldn't get invested. Maybe I need a little bit more time for these guys to brew, or maybe these guys just need, they need a little bit more time to simmer for the recipe to, come together. We get a promo that is hyping up Heavy Machinery versus War Raiders next week, and I thought this was really funny because the focus of this sort of was the tail of the tape, and just how big all of these guys are and the combined weight of both teams, rather than sort of what their in-ring abilities would suggest, although there was a lot of in-ring action sort of playing. I just thought it was really funny they decided to focus on just how big everybody was. That just sort of struck me as a little bit odd. This leads into another Kathy Kelly interview, this time with Cassius Ohno, talking about the Ciampa Gargano situation, which seems to be the main focus of the night, other than, I guess, the Undisputed Era. Cassius Ohno talks about Tommaso becoming a coward, and that he is going to make Tommaso Ciampa pay for what he did to Johnny Gargano. Up next in the ring, we get Patrick Scott versus Kona Reeves. Kona Reeves is making his return to NXT from what I'm understanding, and he looks like he fell out of a Miami Vice episode. He's wearing a white jacket with no shirt. He's got sunglasses on and a big gold chain. This match didn't last very long and seemed to be... It was a rather odd showcase of a talent. He spent a lot of time shouting, "I'm the finest," while he just basically beat down his opponent. The finisher was, I guess, what you would call an inverted Samoan drop. He basically just sort of pancakes him down on his front instead of on his back, which I think is kind of a lame finisher, truth be told. The crowd didn't seem very into it. They really didn't seem to react much to him. I kind of felt the same way. I'm hoping that this gets a little bit more interesting over time, but I guess we'll have to see as the weeks go by. Following the match, we get the most oddly contrasting pair of promos of the night. The first one is an EC3 video package showing him training and getting ready for his return to NXT TV, or his first televised NXT match other than, I guess, the pay-per-view match at TakeOver New Orleans. He's narrating himself by the pool, which is kind of intercut with the training footage. And then we switch over to Dakota Kai, who is apparently outside of the Performance Center being interviewed by reporters and talking about the state of women in the WWE and what they're accomplishing. But oh my god, it's another one of those really jarring segments where the video quality just really goes to crap. I don't know what they're doing to film these segments, but they really look bad. Like, they don't even look like they're filmed on like a DSLR type of camera. They look like they're on a cheap camcorder or like a bad cell phone, like a cell phone from like 3-4 years ago, or well, probably older than that, like 5-6 years ago when they first started to shoot in 1080p. That's what it looks like. It looks very rough and cheap. It almost looks like a rehearsal take that they were doing just to sort of get the scene down and the blocking down before they went and like set up a proper shot to film this. And it was just really visually jarring. Now, of course, the technical bit of it probably would not have stood out to me as much if the segment itself was better acted. Dakota Kai, as well as Vanessa Bourne, who comes in later on in the promo, both of them kind of talking around the fact that Dakota Kai seems to have a grudge with Shayna Baszler. It just came off as very, very poorly done, and I hope that they do get better cutting promos over time. I know that, last week Dakota Kai had her own little promo where she ended up being face-to-face with Shayna Baszler, and it just really, her acting skills are not very good. You might want to rate the promos around the fact that she's not really great on the mic, and she's really not all that great at expressing emotion, like emoting fear or concern or things of that nature. The writers really need to understand who the performer is, and then try to find some material that will work best to set them up for success. We cut back to the ring for Candice LeRae versus Bianca Belair. LeRae, of course, following suit with the interview and keeping in character, looks distracted early on. She does manage to get some pretty good offense early on, but basically she goes for a crossbody and Bianca catches her, and from then on, it's pretty much all Bianca Belair. There was one spot that I was not a fan of, where they did a deadlift of Candice LeRae off the mat, and then Belair turned it into a gorilla press. You could clearly see how Candice LeRae was sort of clenching her thighs together and basically using her arm to clamp down on the hand of Bianca Belair to make it basically next to impossible for Bianca not to be able to lift her. It just didn't look good because of, I'm guessing it's the camera angle and how they framed it. It just looked bad. The gorilla press itself was impressive, and the fact that she was able to lift her up into that position, impressive. It's just sort of, you could see too much of how they did the trick, and it kind of took away a little bit from me. Basically, after an escape from a torture rack, LeRae fights back, gets a really good-looking missile dropkick from the top, but Belair does end up shrugging off a Hurricane DDT, and she hits her alley-oop finisher for the win. Overall, I like the match. This is pretty much the first time I've seen Bianca Belair other than in the Women's Battle Royal at WrestleMania. I know that Lee had told me a little bit about her during the WrestleMania pre-show about how she likes to use her hair as a whip. I was kind of hoping to see that a little bit, sort of add an insult to injury type of thing with Candice LeRae being distracted and distraught over her husband and stuff like that. But I guess they didn't want to go too far into the heelish territory with Belair for this particular match. It was pretty good, I have to say. interested in seeing what else Belair brings to the table. We then get a quick promo to confirm that Cassius Ohno versus Tommaso Ciampa will happen next week and move into our main event, which is Pete Dunne versus Roderick Strong. Roderick Strong starts out coming out to his own music, but he is wearing an Undisputed Era varsity jacket as opposed to the varsity jacket he was wearing previously. Then the music sort of cuts over to the Undisputed Era theme, and then Cole and O'Reilly kind of come out from the backstage area, and the three of them make their way down the ramp. We basically start off the match with Pete Dunne basically being pissed off. Pete, he's just out to hurt Roderick Strong. He's not really trying to pin him. He's just trying to hurt him. He's trying to, like doing a lot of moves to like try and break his fingers and like bend limbs in ways that they're not designed to be bent. Strong pretty much takes advantage of this and has him overcommit to moves and kind of sidesteps and all of that. Eventually, Dunn makes his sort of hero's comeback and eventually hits his finisher, the bitter end. But as he's going for the 3 count, the boys from the Undisputed Era hit the ring and start the beatdown on the Bruiserweight champion. This will draw out Birch and Lorcan from the back, and they basically clean out the house. Now, one of the things I found was really funny was O'Reilly actually lost his shoe during the beatdown of Pete Dunne. And the last thing that happened is I could be wrong because I'm not very familiar with who these guys are. I think it was Birch picked up the shoe, launched it out of the ring, and clocked one of the guys from the Undisputed Era right in the head with the shoe, which I thought was pretty funny. Overall, the show was pretty enjoyable. I think this was probably the best show of the 3, I guess of the 4 shows that I've seen this week. Between Raw, SmackDown, 205 Live, and this, I would probably put NXT and 205 Live near the top, followed by Raw, and then finally SmackDown. SmackDown was very disappointing for me this week. Anyway, we'll see you in the next video, and until then, take it easy.